with my
When I'm
sword.
lost in the maze, need a word for these days. I just call, I just raise every question that I've been saving. And the answer comes on time, peace that settles in my mind. Wisdom on a holy line, got my faith awakened. Chanting the amazing advisor, leading every step I take higher. When I'm weak, you light my fire. I'm chanting the amazing advisor, speaking to my soul's provider. Forever you're my one desire. When the night's closing in, you remind me. When I'm lost in the maze, need a word for these days. I just call, I just raise every question that I've been saving. And the answer comes on time, peace that settles in my mind. Wisdom on a holy line, got my faith awakened. Chanting the amazing advisor, leading every step I take higher. When I'm weak, you light my fire. I'm chanting the amazing advisor, speaking to my soul's provider. Forever you're my one desire. When the night's closing in, you remind me. When I'm lost in the maze, need a word for these days. I just call, I just raise every question that I've been saving. And the answer comes on time, peace that settles in my mind. Wisdom on a holy line, got my faith awakened. Chanting the amazing advisor, leading every step I take higher. When I'm weak, you light my fire. I'm chanting the amazing advisor, speaking to my soul's provider. Forever you're my one desire. When the night's closing in, you remind me. When I'm lost in the maze, need a word for these days. I just call, I just raise every question that I've been saving. And the answer comes on time, peace that settles in my mind. Wisdom on a holy line, got my faith awakened. Chanting the amazing advisor, leading every step I take higher. When I'm weak, you light my fire. I'm chanting the amazing advisor, speaking to my soul's provider. Forever you're my one desire. When the night's closing in, you remind me. When I'm lost in the maze, need a word for these days. I just call, I just raise every question that I've been saving. And the answer comes on time, peace that settles in my mind. Wisdom on a holy line, got my faith awakened. Chanting the amazing advisor, leading every step I take higher. When I'm weak, you light my fire. I'm chanting the amazing advisor, speaking to my soul's provider. Forever you're my one desire. When the night's closing in, you
What's up, Fred?
remind me.
All right.
I can't hear you, dude. 1 second.
Boom!
There we go.
That's the signal. That's how we
That
know it's
theme
working.
song is so good. At first, I thought it was gospel. It's AI based around your theme, right?
Exactly. Yes,
It's
yes.
awesome, dude.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. I had a lot of fun doing it. Yeah. Whew. It's so good to have you back.
Yeah, it's so great to be on the show. And it's been probably a year and a half since we first connected. So lots changed in both of our worlds, which is exciting. And it, I don't know, over the last half decade or so of content creation, you start to collect people in the digital spaces that become like IRL friends, and you've made it into that
Mm.
pocket, which is super cool. Because there's certain folks I reach out to or pick their brain, and you've been on that list for a while, which is fantastic. So it's exciting seeing what you're building towards. And I still get your WhatsApp messages for your group on thumbnails, even if I don't participate. It's always a reminder of like Riley's still going, which is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for context, we have a little WhatsApp group with people creating content and more specifically YouTube videos or YouTube content. It was a way for us to just get together because the the grind can feel very lonely sometimes, and when when your source of information or inspiration is people are succeeding at levels that you can't even fathom,
Hmm.
you feel really bad, right? And so
Yeah.
having a small pack, having a small community of people who are having the same results as you and putting pretty much the same level of inputs, efforts, makes you feel better. It's like, okay, oh, these guys are only able to publish one video a week. Or their videos are not making 1 million views on the first 20 seconds of the release.
Yeah.
Okay, feels better. And then exchanging tips and progressing. Yeah, it was very good. It was very good. It is very good. It's very good. And I don't know if you noticed, but some people, some folks left, some folks
Hmm.
disappeared,
Yeah.
and it also tells you like this game is a marathon, and
Mm.
the long run is very long.
Oh, yeah. And entrepreneurship is just a product of outlasting. And then you see the outsized gains. And so many people start short or pivot to something else that is comfortable. I mean, I've had multiple pivots to figure out what it is. And then once you figure that out, actually persisting in it is so hard. And a lot of
Yeah,
people jump out before it makes sense. Content's a very long term game you have
yeah,
to play. Just build takes a while.
absolutely. And I loved you. I love the fact that you say this because your YouTube channel is quite old. So you've been a pioneer in this content field, at least inside our community. So if you want to tell us a bit more about that, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I went all the way to the first TikTok I ever made today. So I was trying to fish for a video for a friend that he had made with me, and I just started scrolling, and it's something I rarely do, maybe once a quarter, best case. But I just started to see all the evolutions of me across all these different kinds of content before I found it, and it will always change over time. And watching some of my older stuff, like, I'm still the same person, but the way that I express and emote is completely different. Because I was originally chasing just viral content. I had, this character, the pretentious engineer, which I still do, but my content is different than the virality. So I used to be able to hit 300K, 500K views on one 60-second clip pseudo consistently, like every 1 to 7 videos when I had a great niche, but I didn't have a product offering or portfolio of digital products that made sense for that following. So I got up to the point of, I think, 20 million views, 40,000 followers, and 0 cash flow. I hit monetization on both YouTube and TikTok and made like 120 bucks. So it took me a long time to realize the asset I was building with the audience and the ability to communicate, but also huge gaps in how you then have scalable products you could deliver at different price points for different folks along the continuum of their journey and optimizing the content towards that audience. And also learning how to do content that attracts qualified buyers to where you can provide the most leverage within their business, because that's where you get higher ticket, higher price
Mm,
points. If you look at all my content now, it's not corporate, but it is. Like it's still very executive because I do podcast clips with company group chairmen, CEOs, founders in the medtech surgical robotics space. Like it's hyper niched, but that's put me on the top of the LinkedIn feed for Intuitive, Johnson Johnson, Stryker, BW, or Bowsense Webster, BD, Baxter, and like 50% of my audience is all mid-career engineers, 25% is manager to director level, and the other 25% is VC, CEO, C-suite founder kind of folks. And those are the decision makers. And that's what leads to shoulder taps for high leverage opportunities from different companies, which has been pretty cool. But there's always a part of me that misses all the viral crap because like your views go down when you niche in, but your revenue
hey,
goes up.
yeah.
And it's an area where you constantly live in tension with the abundance of ideas and things you could write or record or make versus what you actually put out and how you carefully curate that. But in the next 3 to 5 years, I'll probably scale up a team, and then I could do contextualized content to YouTube and TikTok that's viral and far-reaching, LinkedIn really deep in med tech, which is what I enjoy, and then I could have an even wider scaffolding of products, and then I'll probably raise up a targeted ads team as well, as you continue to build and scale it out, which is fun. I've done 2,000 plus videos. Um, the reason I don't participate in your group as often as I should, my volumes are way too high, so it's intimidating for folks, which we've talked about. They're even higher now than when we chatted, you know. So I'm doing 1 or 2 long form podcasts a week loosely, and those are highly edited now at this point. And then I do 2 to 4 shorts per day, vertical videos. Some are between 60 seconds to 3 minutes. And then there's normally one that's vlog style up to 15 minutes so that I can go deeper with folks. And then
Mm.
I do written posts and newsletters. Like I have the full stack, um, which is a lot of fun and very busy. And then with
This
Loom, I've done over 5,000 video sales messages. So I've done 5,000 plus videos there.
no,
So
no,
I've
no.
got like 7,000 reps in
This is
5.5 years.
super, super interesting. This is super, super interesting. I think that's a topic I want to address in the next 15
Yeah,
minutes.
you're good.
The content and the amount of effort you put in your content. And two things I want to highlight in this story, and I want to make sure we highlight in this story for our viewers is what are the metrics that you pull out. So if we can dive a bit deeper into
Yeah.
what is it that you're pulling out and what are the resources that you have,
Oh, like tech
because
stack and all that?
why not, but I want to make sure people understand it's you alone doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right now.
I want to be very clear on that, and I
Yeah.
also want to make it clear the the scope that you have to be able to do all of these things, because when someone hears a person say I put 100 pieces of content per week, they unconsciously think, oh, that person spends 12 hours a day getting content out
Yeah.
there. It's easy to do that. And I know you, I know who you are, I know your story. And so I want to drive with this. So this is the number of minutes available to me per day, and this is what I'm able to do with this. I want to make sure
Yeah,
people
yeah.
get it, because I think that's the mind shattering that they need to eventually get it out there. So we're gonna dive into all of this, and then we're gonna dive into the second step of the podcast with this other cool conversation. But
Yeah.
before we dive into this, um, I have two questions that I asked my guests
Yeah,
with
of
this new
course.
format. Question number one. So
So
this
excited.
show is called the Startup Kitchen Show, and the reason why I called it Startup Kitchen Show is because like people have been telling me I always use food metaphors when I'm explaining
Mhm.
business and startups.
I know,
But
I love the business bakery. It's so
exactly,
charming,
exactly.
but the
So
startup kitchen makes sense too.
exactly, the startup kitchen is just like I made it slightly bigger. And so my first question for you, and you're gonna love it, is what is your favorite dish
Oh God.
or one of your favorite dish?
If am I cooking it or am I eating it?
You're eating it.
If I'm eating it, okonomiyaki, which for folks who don't, do you know okonomiyaki? Oh yeah,
Of
because you went out
course,
to
of
Japan. Yeah,
course.
yeah.
I
For
had
folks
the
who
best
aren't
one in
familiar,
Osaka. Yeah, go
N-
ahead, go ahead.
mm, we'll see if it's the best, but Osaka's great. I prefer Hiroshima style. So okonomiyaki, it's similar to a pancake batter, but it's a little bit denser or crepe batter. And you mix it with cabbage, and then you'll put typically like squid, or sometimes they'll use thinly sliced pork, and you'll make this giant pancake and you sear it on both sides. And then the one that I get is Hiroshima style. So they'll actually take these thin, spicy noodles and sear those. So you have like a layer of noodles, the pancake, and then on top I add like 3 fried eggs and a whole bunch of pork, and it's got a sweet sauce and a Japanese mayo on it. But the nostalgia with it is there's I believe it's a Michelin star okonomiyaki restaurant, but it's super cheap in the Ochanomizu, which is where Johnson& Johnson headquarters is. So that's where I worked. So I would try to go out there and eat either by myself when I needed to do some deep processing or with coworkers. So like I have a spot that I can visualize and see and experience. Now, I was always this weird 280-pound tall white guy that would walk in and know how to order in Japanese, and it created like an interesting dissidence for the people
Yeah,
there
yeah,
because it was
yeah.
a little local spot. It wasn't like on the tourist paths.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally see it because I had the same feeling. It's like, yeah, it's like European guy, gaijin, going to a very local place, and people look at you like, "What are you doing here?" Like
Mhm.
people like you rarely end up here, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I had to pull out my phone and show a picture of what I wanted to eat. It was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Try having a baby in Japan, like in the hospital system. You'll feel even more like otherly because I know you don't have any kids, but my wife went through 14 days of labor in the Japanese healthcare systems based on
okay,
different pre-existing health conditions she brought into it. Japanese labor and delivery is completely different than the US. They time out when they deliver babies. And then she hit like weird holiday weekends and things. So they just started inductions and stopped inductions and started. So that was always fun bridging the language and the cultural and the medical gap with all the fear involved with it as well from both sides. So that was fun. That's a whole nother level.
yeah, yeah. And I never told you that, but my fifth startup was a medtech startup.
Oh,
We
nice.
we built a birth simulator,
Okay.
and it was in the field of gynecology and obstetric. So
Yeah.
I spent a fair bit of time in
Labor
the
and delivery.
maternity and yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's so
You know,
awesome. Was it all
yeah.
software based?
Uh,
Like VR based, or what was it?
so the quick pitch, and we can totally have this conversation on your podcast next time. But so the idea was so the woman would go through an MRI, I think at
Mhm.
the eighth month of pregnancy, but a very specifically customized MRI sorry, settings so that we could get a clear picture of the baby and the birth channel, and then we would get those get that data and process it through an algorithm, and the algorithm would essentially recreate 3D the baby with the exact proportion, the birth channel, and to make it very simple and clear, what we were doing was like a crash test, just like cars. So simulating the journey of the baby in
Yeah.
the channel, and then measuring the skull compression and where the
Yeah.
tissues of the mother would get too much stress or not. So we would be able to predict if the baby could be delivered naturally or if it
Mhm.
really needed a cesarean section.
Yeah. So it's another risk mitigation.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, and my wife
Yeah.
navigated, inductions for 3 out of 4 of our kids because, she had gestational diabetes, which puts you in a higher risk profile and a concern that the baby will be too big or not.
Mm.
And then ultrasound measurements are imperfect at navigating it. I didn't know that they can actually do MRIs on pregnant women, so I was over here, like, critically processing what you were sharing. I know that X-rays lead to birth defects. I didn't know about MRI. But yeah, that's very interesting. Just for
Yeah.
like the high risk side, the reimbursement's probably interesting to navigate that as well. Did you actually exit it or commercialize it? Or where did that all land? Because I
No,
know you've touched multiple startups. That's okay.
yeah, it didn't land for a lot of reasons. But yeah, I'll talk to you
That's
about that,
another story.
and then you'll know if it's an interesting enough story to share on a podcast. But yeah,
Yeah.
I dropped the startup because we had a kind of a beef with the CEO. He was stuck in perfectionism and
Oh God.
not shipping and these kind of things. Yeah,
Okay. Excellent.
yeah. So yeah, I had a little bit of experience in the medtech world. Very interesting. Mm, yeah, I'm not sure I want to ever go back to that. It's
That's
just
my life.
losing a lot of hair and it's hard. But yeah, I want to know your story. But before we dive into that, so I asked you for your favorite dish, okonomiyaki.
Yeah.
Oh my god, yes, I'm hungry just thinking about that. The reason why I asked this is because, like I said, I love explaining business using food. And when you think about it, building a startup or building a business is not that different from cooking food and making sure people
Mhm.
enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to buy a restaurant and ingredients for 1,000 people if you've never tried the recipe before, right?
Mhm.
Yet everybody does it in business. They spend zillions to realize that they have a dish that nobody wants, and like your chocolate mixed pasta is not something that people actually want to buy. And so I want to I want to use that and see what was your recipe for building the things that you've built. What was the ingredients that you've used to give it that extra flavor that got you the results that you have. And we'll cover this throughout this conversation. But before we dive into this, let's just go anime style and just rewind the entire story to when you were born and who's Joseph Isosaki, so that people who don't know you and discover you for the first time just hear the story of the birth of the Super Saiyan.
Yeah, well, I'm not a super saiyan yet, but that's beautiful. And
Yet.
Riley, I appreciate your zeal and joy in these spaces. So yeah, for a bit of context for folks who don't know me, I'm Joe Sasaki. I worked at Johnson Johnson for a decade progressing robotic surgical technologies. So I'm an expert on how to cut people up and put them back together again and the different hardware and software ecosystems you need to develop to actually progress global healing. So I've worked on staplers that go inside your body, ultrasonic blades that vibrate 50,000 cycles a second to cut and coagulate tissue. I've worked across multiple build to buy robotics architectures that Johnson and Johnson's co-developed with Google, and then a $3.2 billion acquisition of Auris Health. So I've worked in probably a, it's not fully disclosed, loosely between a 4 and we'll say $6 billion venture to get a robotics platform off the ground over 10 years. And I had the opportunity to direct front end innovation in Tokyo for 2.5 years. So I traveled the region extensively, immersed in the OR, connected with surgeons, did post operative interviews, so it was global strategic marketing, and then brought those insights into a collaborative innovation ecosystem that I called Program Pokeball. I had 32 innovators across a what like cross disciplinary group. So I had engineers, software, industrial design and human factors, global strategic marketing, Japanese regional marketing, APAC marketing, Japanese sales, medical affairs, all on these different startup teams that were progressing tech towards failure to kind of find these cliffs that we could develop. That was really cool. We moved 12 times 1 year to get to Japan with 3 kids. Had our fourth child in Japan. My job was impacted. We're offered a return path to the US in New Jersey. We had no support network in New Jersey, so I pulled a 75K personal loan and did a crazy exit from a decade long career in a foreign country and decided to try to start a business. That's somewhere where we met. I think we met after I crashed out. So after we'll get to the recipe, but like after 7 months of all in entrepreneurship, we burned through all those funds. International school is incredibly expensive. With the 4 kids we had, 3 of them were in school, and we hit zero in a foreign country and had to figure out what to do next. So we're on the edge of bankruptcy, and we ended up in 20 days exiting the country, co-living with family in Chicago. So we lived with our in-laws, so my grandparents-in-law, my father-in-law, and then Did that for a year, doubled down on my ventures and kept trying to figure out how to build a med tech business in parallel to half-heartedly looking for jobs in Chicago. So I was in this weird slush period. I think that's where we actually met. And then ended up working third shift at Amazon after pulling my 401k and burning all of that. So I pulled all our life savings when we got to the US, ran that to zero, and then started working third shift from midnight until 1 at Amazon and tripled down and then started to get revenue. So now I'm tracking towards between 10 and 17K MMR, which is more than I made at J&J. It's USD. I know you're a Euro guy. Um, Thanks for the math. And then in parallel, I'm attracting really interesting shoulder taps for global executive roles in medtech in stealth mode startups. And I have my own business, Moonlight Medical, and I have 2 school communities as well. And I've monetized across different pockets of all of those. I'm scaling teams and it's getting interesting and fun. So now I work third shift the least amount of hours possible to keep medical for my family. And then I'll either get my own insurance and lift off if revenue increases, or I'll jump into a full-time gig, use that for medical and base, and then reinvest in the business and scale a team, which is kind of like the messy transition I'm in. But that's a speed run in 2 minutes. So I've hit 0 more times than I can count, screwed up a lot in the journey, failed a lot, and then started to find the recipe. And every recipe is a little bit different. And I'm also parenting. So every once in a while, I'll glance at my son who's popping up. Do you want a snack? Yeah. So that's the story.
There you go.
Give me more.
You have the speed run, guys, of the full story, and we're gonna dive into this a bit more
Yeah.
in the following minutes. But I think it's a it's a really good foundational context for
Yeah.
all the questions that I have for you after that. So first thing I'm really curious to know is
Yeah.
what was or what is your source of energy to be able to just go through all of this and just get you motivated? What was it that never made you give up? I think I hear
Um,
the reason.
it, you know, family's a big drive. There's quite a few different energies that you navigate during the journey. I think in the beginning, like the Japan season, fear of failure was a huge aspect and kind of this irrational confidence that I could take this jump on building a life here and it'll work. So I'm going to trust that I hold value in the market. I can go out and connect and create value. But there's a lot of things about business I didn't know, and I got run over between gaps in what I knew and circumstance. And then crashing out at the in-laws, I think a motivation from that wasn't to get out of the in-laws. For my entire life, I've been kind of independent and a provider of myself, and then a provider of my spouse, and then a provider of kids. So it's incredibly humbling to be in a season of need where I couldn't just poof us into a house and make rent and have a job overnight because I have a very niche set of capabilities, and the market in Chicago for that skill set is actually not really mature. There's no robotics startup-y stuff happening in Chicago that I know about. And I could have jumped to other large med tech players, but I don't have a traditional skill set for that. All of the jobs or the opportunities I needed to hunt were happening in the Bay, they're happening in Boston, they're happening in Japan. And our family at that point had moved 14 times, or no, 15 times in 4 years with 4 kids. So part of it conceptually was I had to create enough demand for my talent that I could be on a flight to go and connect while keep my family base in Chicago, because we're not only trying to give our children stability, but we're also caring for my grandfather who's dying of, going to say everything. I mean, he's got dementia, diabetes, kidney failure at 7% function, dialysis. So in the medtech space, like I have been a caretaker for a year. And I think hitting that financial rock bottom of being in need and reconciling that with my giftings and capabilities, that was a different drive to keep trying. That's also when I doubled down on school. I paid $1,600 to join a community that's focused on community building and started meeting people that were doing between 10 and 40K MMR. And just kind of re-speaking over myself this, again, almost a rational sense of belief that, like, I'm smarter than some of these people. Surely I could figure out how to build this. Let me pull my 401k and buy a minivan and extend our time
Mm.
and then make more mistakes and realize the lead times necessary to build a thriving business and kind of figuring out how I wanted it to shape up. And then I think when third shift happened, there is something that changed in me around authenticity and just realizing that I could bring my full self to a digital context from a storytelling perspective and curate authentic stories of others. A lot of founders in especially the medtech context, but I'm sure in your context as well, they're trying to raise money from VCs or get acquired by large strategic companies like a Johnson and Johnson. And there's a lot of political poshness that exists in LinkedIn, and it feels disingenuous because it is. And I started to find value in elevating real stories of real leaders in my industry. Leveraging our podcast together kind of gave me some fuel to like actually do it with other people. I think I was first time I was on a show was yours. And the first time I had a guest was yours because it was kind of a dual conversation. Um, and that helped me just realize like the value I hold in my industry, that this is a niche skill set that I could take all this learning from TikTok and all this content, but I could help somebody else tell their story. And my content tends to lift up other leaders in the industry. So there's a positive light to it. And it's anchored with me doing third shift that makes it accessible. And that's fueled me to push harder and lose more sleep and still be present as a father across all of that. And I think I have some concerns as I become quote unquote successful on the season where I don't have to work third shift and how I still tell the stories of where I came from to where I'm at. Because the larger that gap gets, the more inaccessible you get to people that are on the pathway. Uh, so I've continued to try to compress the anchor, the origin story, those experiences, and then also be able to hold my full gifting and success in that. Because it's possible, like I could scale my business to multiple million ARR and raise up a team to do it. And that's to hold that intention with like, I still got to wake up at midnight tomorrow and go to third shift and push boxes. Like that's a very interesting narrative you have to have with yourself. And that could either crush and squeeze all the motivation out of you, or you could learn how to hold your identity and miss that. Because a lot of our identities are often imprinted from external ways we've been socialized and thought patterns we've been around, our circumstances or what job or level or pay we have. And a lot of that's been stripped away in my life in a good way that I'm very thankful for. But that's where a lot of the drive and the volumes comes from. It's kind of a mix of like belief in the principles and a focus on what I do and how I emote, and holding that intention with how I feel, because I can show up regardless of how I feel and still have outputs, which for a lot of people, that's really hard. I'll pause. I don't know if that gives you anything to vamp on.
Then I appreciate that. it, and and during those times, did you ever want to give up?
I don't know. I wouldn't say I wanted to give up. I think I wanted it to be easy, like easier than it was. There's always a thinking aspect of this journey that I've held in tension with the feeling aspect. If I was making choices off of feeling, I never would have quit J&J because it like if I knew how hard it would be, I would have just taken the pathway back to New Jersey. Like quitting J&J cost me over $400,000 across lost revenue, liabilities, having to repay tuition, losing all my long-term incentives, the psychological damage to my children and my wife, and like all the risks we've taken and lost sleep. Third shift takes a couple of years off your life, you know. So like if I had gone off a feeling, I definitely wouldn't be in this game. Um, it feels a little bit sounds terrible. Entrepreneurship sometimes feels a little bit like having a mild gambling addiction, whereas like you are just one more dice roll away from things working. Like if I just get a bit better, and if I tune this offer, and if I tune the content to get leads, and if I tune delivery, and if I build trust, and if it's a constant cycling of if I testing, evaluating, failing, succeeding, and those loops, and specifically the unpredictability of the outcome, while it feeling predictable, can keep pulling you I see you nodding, like, it can keep you moving forward and getting better. So I don't know if I ever wanted it to quit, but I definitely wanted to figure it out without pulling my whole 401k, or without pulling this loan, or without hitting 0 multiple times, or without leveraging, like, government support and food pantries and co-living with in-laws and all these other crazy things that, again, makes it feel like it was a gambling addiction of, like, I should have quit, like, this business should have died so many times. But I think only 6 weeks ago, I launched Moonlight Medical as my formal business now, and people are reaching out and trying to join and partner with me, and, like, leads flows coming in, and it just took a while to synthesize exactly what I do, who it's for, building trust in my industry and becoming a leading voice in it. Like, you have to get all the pieces together, and then it gets really fun. Um, and then when I coach folks in the Big Brain Club, which is my other community, I I try to help people not have to take as extreme risks as I have, and to find the little shortcuts along the way. Because there are principles you unearth by doing it, or you could pay people for those principles and apply them to your business. It's just based on what season of life you're in and what risk you can navigate, either financially or with your time, or you can gamble with your whole life like I have. Uh, but no, I think I've approached entrepreneurship like a wall squat. Like, you always pray for ease, and you don't get anything out of it unless you stay in it. So that logic keeps you suffering until you get the outsized gain. It's inconvenient truths from Joe.
We'll clip. We'll clip this. We'll clip this. No, the thing, I 100% agree, and that's also why
Yeah.
a lot of business people talk about business, saying things like bets. You have to place
Yeah.
big bets. Fundamentally, that's the same vocabulary as as gamblers. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Like, I've run my whole life like a startup. I mean, once you hit 0 once, like, you measure your burn rate and you squeeze it and stretch it as long as you can. And then when you're trying to close different clients, you feel it when you're expecting them to pay net 7 and they pay net 60, and how your life gets reorganized around that. Um, and at the same time, not holding animosity against them because you never put it in writing. You just thought people pay you when you do the work. It's like all these different things working in B2B that you learn through pain. And then you start to have different risk mitigations to offset for that. So I've been highly selective with which clients I actually work with, and it's clients I can take far,
Mm.
and it's clients that lead to the next client. But that meant I had to work third shift a heck of a lot longer than almost anybody would have, because I just realized the cycle times involved with, like, your CAC, or cost of acquisition, of actually finding a client, them reaching out, it being a fit, you providing value, getting paid, them leading to a word of mouth referral to the next client. Um, and then constantly refining your product and your offer. Like, there's all these fine tunings you have to do. And a lot of people, we talked about this on the first episode we did, like, anyone could be an entrepreneur, but I don't think a lot of people are willing to navigate all the loops of pain and getting better, because they don't have a deep-seated why. And they're often looking for perfect starting conditions, which you'll never get in business. You can have perfect, like, runway conditions to have something scale and crush the market, but the starting point is always a risk, a financial risk, a timing risk, an uncertainty risk. And a lot of folks struggle to navigate that and kind of lean into that discomfort. And for me, I had perfect conditions of 12 moves to get to a country, and the indifference of an organization to try to move me to a random state after having my fourth child, and some deep ethics within me saying, I'm not going to let this company destabilize my family. So I put the onus on myself to fail at business and destabilize my family, but I wasn't going to let J&J do it. Which was, looking back, it was so dumb, but it was the best thing I've ever done. Was quitting at that point in my journey.
Absolutely. No, it's so on point. I want to rebound to something that you said, which is this idea that entrepreneurship is putting a lot of efforts in building muscle
Mm-hmm.
memory through failures. Um, and I think the one thing that really makes entrepreneurship different from a lot of other activities is probably the fact that there is no fundamental meritocracy with it. And what I mean by that
Yeah.
is I remember the CEO of Nokia when Nokia was on the verge of collapsing, they were acquired by
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft and stuff like that. He said something very interesting. He said, "We did everything right, but
Yep.
we still failed."
Mm-hmm.
And it reminds me a little bit that Super Bowl game where you have two of the best teams in America for the biggest event of the year. They both trained like crazy, optimized everything they could optimize. They gave their best day, but only one of them got the title.
Yep.
And that's the harsh rules of the game. You can do everything right. You can put all your energy into that stuff and still don't get the success that you deserve, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes it and the worst part is it often is binary. It's not like, okay, you're only getting 10% return. No, you get zero out of putting
Mm-hmm.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's the hardest part about it. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, like with my business, Moonlight Medical, I consult stealth mode startups. So it's all pre-public med tech things. So like an example, one startup approached me. They had a high fidelity prototype. They were trying to get it through FDA submission, and they had two different engineering consulting firms that would take it along that continuum. And they just needed in candor someone to come in and like call bullshit, like which pathway will actually happen on time at the right cost point, who's going to get it there. And they need someone to look over the end. I ended up doing that work, and then that led to more work and more work. And I think a lot of times when you're consulting founders and CEOs, like you said, you could do every single thing right. And then there's the circumstance of the funding environment where you could get through all the checkpoints, you could build the team up to a point, and then it's just the unfortunate death of a startup. I do think within medtech specifically, I have something called the innovation trifecta, where you have a clinical unmet need, technical feasibility, commercial viability. And a lot of times startups will get stuck in a corner. And that is a death that can be avoided through external counsel or just getting better or building a diverse team. But then if you still nail the innovation trifecta, you still might not get past the early adopters or be eclipsed by other reasons like Nokia or BlackBerry. I don't know if you've seen the BlackBerry movie on Netflix. It's fantastic. Yeah, of like them just getting completely run over by iPhone and then still trying to hold on to the keyboard and the clicks as if it's special. Like things like that happen in business, and it can happen so quickly. And I'm counseling quite a few CEOs, and one of them has literally done everything he can to put his name and his company out there, and the mission and vision, and the TAM and everything it does. And I believe in it wholeheartedly. And he's trying to create a bidding war, which is ongoing, but no one's writing the first check to extend it. And he's burned everything for the business from his own reserves. And it's like, and then there's also layers of ego of, well, now I would be a failure at this. How could I ever, who would bet on me to build something else later because this one failed? And that's a cultural inner work thing that has to happen. Like, I don't trust folks unless they've failed in some capacity. But because we always put our polished self forward, that's a barrier. I think for people trying to step into entrepreneurship, there's two wings of it. Like there's the product innovation, like trying to do a large raise to build a SaaS solution or a piece of hardware that you deploy. Like that's one side of building business. And there's very different skill sets you need in that world to succeed. And then there's the service-based business. If you're trying to actually get a company off the ground to consult and fractionalize your skill set and monetize it, or build up a team around a set of services. There's different risk portfolios in both, and in either you could do everything right and still get run over. But I think on the surface side, it it that's where the zero sum game I think is actually way more real, because you talked about it being like all or nothing. There's kind of this line you have to get past where if you outlast and just get better, you can be successful, but so many die before they ever see the raise in revenue to stay alive to get past the line.
The glass ceiling.
And I feel incredibly privileged that I've crossed it enough to cut rent every month in our own place for 8 months, which is crazy with 4 kids. Like, I still shouldn't be living in the apartment I'm living in outside the in-laws, but somehow from doing a keynote speaking gig to getting multiple clients to getting people on retainers to having to extend, I'm like, shoot, we might be okay. But there's always the uncertainty of like, what about tomorrow? What about next week? Will I get another client? Can I extend the LTV or the lifetime value of the client? You're always holding that intention. But I think in a service-based business, it is zero or all. And so few make it past the line because they quit early. But that's all within a founder's capabilities, I think, is the hard part. Because doing everything right, I think, also means doing something wrong longer than other people. It's part of the journey. Whereas in product, it's a whole different game, because the market is so large and the dollars are so big with so many competitive players. You will just get run over if you don't have the right IP protection, the right product, the right distribution channels, the right brand presence and equity, because brand equity is huge for steering choice towards different product offerings. And when you start to get into my context, which is like surgical robotics, that's a whole nother game. Like, you got, I don't know, 60 surgical robotics companies moving forward right now. And how many of them will win and survive the next 5 to 10 years is very complicated. But it's a very small percentage. So that's the zero in all of it, is kind of the game that they're playing. So I know we have like 2 different audiences on this discussion, both people that are working and progressing technology, and then people that are trying to support the ecosystems that progress it. And I think you have more of a chance in the latter if you're getting started, and then you take that skill set back into founding a company. Would be my encouragement.
Yeah, really interesting. It's really interesting. I fully agree with a lot of things that you said, not to say all of it. I'm curious to know more about the robotics world and what you just mentioned. There are about 60 actors racing right now. Do you think this is going to be a winner takes all situation, or there's space for multiple actors?
There's space for multiple because there's so many disease states. It's like if you look at traditional soft tissue robotics, so if you have colon cancer, lung cancer, if you need a gastric bypass, hysterectomy, you have Intuitive has multiple generations of a surgical robotic solution that can navigate that. And then you have the endoluminal solutions that are coming out. So an example by Intuitive would be Ion, where you could come through the throat into the small airway of the lungs to do stuff. Johnson & Johnson's trying to enter that space with Monarch. You could also go through a ureter if you wanted to like engage kidney stones and use lasers and all kinds of cool stuff. You have the orthopedic space if you're doing a knee implant, if you're doing spinal surgery. So like there's lots of mini verticals within medtech where robotics can be deployed. A large company that's gaining traction in India, I don't think it's based in India, but their first release markets India is Lupin Dental. So it's all for dental implants. So a lot of companies that, for instance, try to go head to head with Intuitive just look like a copycat, and on paper will fail because their base of robots they've positioned is just so extensive within hospitals that if you don't have anything that differentiates you, it's really difficult to get traction commercially.
Okay.
So what you have happening is you'll have a company like Microport MedBot, which is a Chinese-based robotics company. They have a portfolio of robots, but if you look at their soft tissue one, they do everything Intuitive does, but they also do telesurgery. is kind of where you see all their marketing, is that you could have a clinician in a city,
Mm,
or you could have like a surgeon in a city, and you could have the robot deployed in a more rural community and do telesurgery with a high level precision and latency. And they're going really hard after the Chinese market, really hard after emerging markets like Latin America,
mm,
Africa, because Intuitive's left scraps. But that's still extensive enough that they can get the revenue and the funding to keep going and survive. If you look at larger strategics, again, I'm geeking out in my context, but like, um, shoot, oh man, I forgot it. It's gonna kill me. I've competed against them for years. Medtronic, sorry. Medtronic has their own robot, Hugo Raz, which is a cart-based architecture. So you roll in these 4 different carts with an
okay.
arm and different tools. For them, their differentiator from Intuitive is people that have used their handheld instruments for decades, learning how to do laparoscopic surgery through small ports. That instrumentation that's trusted will be on their robot. So you're buying into the future brand affiliation with prior users that they might pick that over Intuitive. Johnson Johnson's playing the same game, which is what I worked on. Their platform is table mounted, so you get no OR footprint compared to this giant boom architecture that comes over from Intuitive, using late best in class J&J instrumentation that they're familiar with. So these are different ways you're influencing clinicians on both. I wrote on this. This went pseudo viral on LinkedIn and was really contentious, so I liked it. Um, it, these platforms are being sold on 2 things: novelty and nostalgia. And
Mm,
that's what will allow you to carve up the market against such a strong player like Intuitive. Is the nostalgia is the first moment they sealed a large vessel with a harmonic ultrasonic device, which is a J&J product, and they've always trusted it. And for like the last 6 years of using Intuitive, they can't use the best harmonic instrumentation they have. J&J actually leases a harmonic blade to Intuitive, but they stopped doing it once we got in robotics. So it's like 4 generations back. Like the tip is smaller, not as useful, you know. So there will be this nostalgia of having something they used to have in a robotic embodiment that will drive adoption. But then there's also the novelty of, well, this robot's on a table and it can fold under, so I could do a normal procedure. There's some You always need something differentiated and new, blended with nostalgia. Nostalgia is heightened by brand equity. So when you have a lot of other Da Vinci intuitive copycat companies that don't have a brand like Medtronic or J&J behind it, they're trying to establish a brand. CMR Surgical is an example of this. They have a cart-based architecture. It's incredibly challenging because why are clinicians attracted to that brand? You have to create nostalgia overnight with a perception of nostalgia. All you are is novelty. And is that novelty enough to supersede kind of the monster in the market?
mm,
So like, I love that space, and that's just soft tissue. But then there's lots of other soft tissues. You can get into stroke robotics, you can get into cardiac. Um, so I have an appreciation for any person or business taking a shot at progressing global healing, and you want to see all those players play at their best because
mm.
that's what's best for the patients and clinicians, even though you will have huge losers at the end of the day, because that's you could do everything right and lose, as you were sharing.
Okay. Makes total sense. Now I'm super curious about one thing and sort of pulling the conversation towards
Yeah.
more the kind of the things that I talk about, but
Yeah.
it there's totally like a union point here. How does one pull out a startup in the medical field and makes it a business? And the reason why I'm asking this is
Mhm.
because I come from a French background,
Yeah.
and in France, health is highly centralized and government managed, so that being a private sector company providing health services is hard.
Yeah.
And the second thing is you're also competing against all those giants. And so you mentioned Monarch as a product, which reminded me Godzilla, but that's an entirely different thing. But that's the picture that I have. It's like
Mhm.
a startup is like that tiny little cute thing, and in front of you you have Godzilla and a bunch of giant other monsters that represents the health industry, the governments, the regulations. And so for a startup to survive when you're providing, let's say, a SaaS, is extremely hard. But on top of that, you have all the constraints of the health industry, and so I feel like it's 1,000x harder. And so you talking to a lot of startups, I'm super curious. Is it even possible to pull something out without just being acquired? And if yes, what did you notice? What did you learn from this?
That's a brilliant question. That's like a whole hour conversation, but I'll break it down the best I can. I
Let me
think
switch to my hot glasses because this is gonna be like a fiery topic. Boom, let's go.
um, a great example, just to kind of speak across this loosely, leverage is really important. Who you bring to the table to progress a startup is almost more important than the tech. I almost like the tech is the solution, the clinical unmet need, the technical feasibility, commercial viability, that all has to be there in some capacity.
So
But
it's
it's
kind of a
also the
team market fit kind
yeah,
of thing.
the who you bring around that is really compelling. It's like a shoulder tap that I have that I can't disclose because it's not closed yet for a gig, which will be really cool. Like you're attending the first robotics surgery in a given context with the surgeon that did it first, with the person who crafted that technology, and they're back in the same OR a decade and a half later after having an exit to an undisclosed strategic, about to go into a new space, and they're
Mm,
building the dream team, right? Like I bet on that team any day of the week, even if the technology has some rough edges that need to be figured out over the next 3 to 7 years,
mm,
because they've done it and they're they have the gall to do it again, right? So like that's like a great example, like Ian McCathern, who's a friend of mine, he's a client as well. Um, he's moved in and out of running his own business, Nerdian, that builds robots off the ground for medtech contexts and working within them. So he worked at Verb Surgical and Oris, which both were acquired by J&J to make the robot. I worked on the other side of that venture from the J&J side. And then he was eventually the senior director of hardware for Moon Surgical, which created a robot called the Maestro platform. It's a two-armed robot. It's a cart with two arms on it, and it'll hold your laparoscope, and it uses AI to follow the field of view automatically for the clinician. And the other one will, you could position any off-the-shelf instrument, and you can grasp like the liver and resect it, or sorry, retract it, lift it up, and then you could just use your two hands as normal. So you could do a two-person surgery with one person with AI following you. Whereas I talked with a lot of surgeons, and if they have like a newbie resident that's helping them hold the scope, like the flow of the procedure is really complicated and it takes too long. Like the AIs provide a lot of value there. Ian came in and with three other guys, like they got all the hardware off the ground in less than a year on a very lean budget. His name's on 1,000+ part files. Like that's a high leverage individual, and he's got his crew that he's brought from thing to thing, and they know
mm,
how to vibe together, and they'll outperform a team of 50, right? So I think it's that team market fit plus the product market fit is really important to give yourself a shot. Now, concerning the and there's a lot of people at Moon that were part of that. So it wasn't just Ian and those four guys, but from their contribution, they got huge leverage off of it. Whereas they could have burned an extra 6 million in a large team and still not gotten it done. It's the right people are really important. So if you have a small med tech device, maybe electromechanical system, but it's fairly reasonable in scope, you could raise capital from private equity, VC. You could progress it into commercial. You could have a small sales force. You could distribute it in one country. The problem is once you start to get towards global commercialization, you have to have the cash flow to open up local offices and navigate multiple regulatory bodies. And that's where economies of scale will crush you. But if you have the right IP, then that's a great point to exit. So Johnson and Johnson, Stryker, these larger companies typically acquire when there's some early signs of revenue and you've cleared FDA, because then they'll help you
mm.
clear all the other ones and they'll just scale it across their commercial beast and you're good. So that's like pathway A. Um, and I forgot the statistic. It's like money is 10 times more efficient in a startup context than within R&D in a traditional strategic like a J&J. Money is burned faster and moves slower, less far than a corporate monster. If you just spin something out, let smart people go at it really hard and then exit it. The other pathway is a build to buy. So build to buy is what J&J has attempted, but that's a messy example. A cleaner example, you have a company like Olympus. So they do a lot of electromechanical devices, scopes for optics. They're a Japanese company, but global in footprint. They shook hands with Revival Healthcare Capital, which I think they're private equity, just deep pockets, right? Bank that makes investments. And they co-founded something called Swan Endosurgical, which is looking at GI endoluminal robotics, so entering transanally to do work in your colon. And there's not a lot of existing commercialized solutions in that spaces. If Olympus just wanted to make that robot itself, it destroys their P&L to the shareholders because they have to raise up capabilities in robotics and software, distract hardware. Then that is competing with all their internal R&D projects. It slows them down. Whereas if they spin it out, they take capital from this other investor, Revival. They seed their expertise into that org from what they already know in bendy things because they make laparoscopes and colonoscopy scopes. And then they let the startup run at startup speed. And that'll allow them to get a product, an MVP out way faster in theory. And then they have priority to reacquire it at a later date if they continue to hit milestones. And you also have milestone-based funding for both partners. J&J tried to do this with Google. They shook hands to create Verb Surgical to make a robot. J&J would make all the instruments for the robot. And then we learned robots were hard, integrations were hard, who gets the revenue was hard. We eventually bought Google out of that agreement for an undisclosed amount. And then we acquired a different company for 3.2 billion with 6 arms instead of 4 arms. And then we progressed that until it was almost ready to commercialize, but they had an architecture issue. So then we pivoted back to the 4-arm robot from Verb. So that's been a decade and multi-billion burned with no ROI. Like that's a build to buy disaster that should hopefully yield an awesome product because I still believe in it. So those are kind of the 2 primary pathways. The third pathway, which is what I want to do, and it works a little bit easier with SaaS or ecosystem plays, is you bootstrap it. Like you just hustle in corporate for a decade and you rack up cash and you meet the smart people that also rack up cash. You find those leveraged individuals. You find yourself a clear clinical unmet need, and then, oh, you're good. Yeah.
Wait a second. I just want to introduce a little bit of context because you dropped a keyword and I want to make sure people get it.
Yeah.
You talked about bootstrapping.
Yeah.
So if you can explain quickly what bootstrapping is to folks.
Yes.
And because in my mind there's a cognitive dissonance because bootstrapping is selling t-shirts so you can make money doing SaaS. and now I'm trying to connect this with selling t-shirts so you can build Iron Man level of armor. It's like wait.
Yeah.
So if you can clarify this for us.
Yeah, of course. It's a great timeout. Sorry, when I start to think, I lose camera and I just like look up and talk. That's how I've done content for years now. So I was in the deep thinking quadrant. So bootstrapping is when you have cash, you save up cash to be able to burn it each month and invest in whatever you're building towards. So I've bootstrapped all of my service-based business. I bootstrapped it first with a 75K personal loan, which was a huge liability that I took. Burn that. Bootstrapped it with all my retirement savings, burn that, and then bootstrapped it with what I'll call manual labor at Amazon for 11 months. And then I started to figure out how to lead with revenue, which then caused the business to gain traction. My plan is to scale my business, Moonlight Medical, as a consulting service-based business to, 5 to 12 members and really work well in our pocket and do the content creation that goes out so that I own distribution. From a content perspective, I own all the handshakes with VCs because they're on top of my feed. I own the talent. And then downstream, when I find a compelling clinical unmet need, that business is a revenue machine that funds my own medtech startup. Because if you jump straight to a medtech startup, you're not ready to bootstrap it most likely, which means you're at the whim of VC. And the problem with VC is they want to get their ROI as quickly as possible. So they put different constraints on what you develop, sometimes for the good of the business, but sometimes not for the good of patients or clinicians, or there's a way to scale for the 5 to 10-year horizon that you can't play with because they're operating on the 2 to 4-year horizon. So
Mm,
when you bootstrap, you could create the culture in the business you desire, assuming you have enough cash flow. So I've consulted startups where they literally just racked cash in Silicon Valley gigs per season, or they had an exit of a company they were part of early in that journey, and then they just put that money back into what they take a shot on next. And that's all chips in, right? Like that's a
s-
whole different gamble.
so help me understand. Maybe I got this
Yeah.
wrong. Are you saying those med tech startups, and it's very specific to med tech startup, pretty much sold anything to rack up money and then convert it into med tech with that money that it racked up, or they started selling services, med tech services,
Oh,
and
this is
then
how I'm doing it. This is just my pathway, right? So
okay,
an, another example would be someone who worked at Intuitive for 20 years with their stock options and their cash flow in the Bay. They don't really need to work for money for a couple of years.
okay,
So they're bootstrapping their own startup. Like they've seen something enough times. They're like, man, if I got a few people around this idea, we could probably make a killer product. And they just pay cash for R&D. They pay cash for the products they're developing, the team. Like they pay salaries out of what they've made or nested. So it's the pathway of become pseudo independently wealthy and then build something and bet on yourself. And that gives you full control over what you're developing. And as long as you get the right IP protection, then you can have a large exit. But when you get into complex electromechanical systems like robots,
mm,
it becomes harder. If you are developing a SaaS solution in medtech off of existing capital that's been deployed and they have an open API. So Johnson and Johnson, for instance, has a platform called Polyphonic where you could develop digital solutions for the surgical environment. They already have lots of capital deployed. You could totally bootstrap something there. You get something off the ground for like 200K and try to lead with revenue as a business in that pocket. Um, so it's all a matter of the level of complexity that you're designing to. And the higher the level of complexity, typically the larger the TAM, which is easier to get in VCs and strategics excited about it. But the smaller the complexity, there's still pockets in the market that you could build a compelling business around because a lot of times larger strategics will negate it because there's something called EMPV. You're familiar with EMPV?
no,
It's like estimated net present value. So it's a front end
okay,
startup math where you could look at everything that's in your front end pipeline and you know that $100 million in this versus this has so much value. So you could
mm,
basically see like assuming on how long you can get to market and what the anticipated revenue is, my money gets more leverage here versus there. So you use it to kill products or projects. So because that's happening in larger strategics, that means that startups can go after the things that get cut off. So for J&J, and this bar is always changing, so this isn't special. Like J&J front end at Ethicon when I worked there was like the EMPV had to be above 100 million for us to really look at it. Like it had to be the net present value of money going into a project for us to consider it based on lead times to get it out and potential revenue. So that means if you bootstrapped a startup that could get a 50 million EMPV product, there might be plenty of room for you to get out there. The commercializing the team to scale how you sell it, that's a whole nother challenge. But there's still spaces to play, even as the market gets more crowded. I'll pause. So those are kind of three pathways. You could do a build to buy with a startup's money or with a strategic's money. You could raise VC and get acquired. You could bootstrap it yourself. You could do all three of those things and fail and lose all your money. So that's path four.
yeah,
but,
absolutely,
but you'll learn a lot
absolutely,
along the way.
yeah, 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 and then you can probably monetize that learning in the future, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm curious. I just want to rebound on this with the bootstrap path or self funded. What is your estimate of time before you can sort of get your product to the market? I'm not talking like getting return on investment. It's just like getting
Mhm.
that end vision product that you had in mind at the beginning of the journey to the market.
Yeah, that's a very complex question, worded quite simply. So with medical device, You have class 1, class 2, class 3 based on risks or severity to the patient.
Okay.
And then you also have, based on the risk profile, if a predicate exists or not, you also have a different regulatory pathway. So we have something called like a 510K. So you'll see a lot of large strategics will try to hack the 510K clearance pathway, where they'll innovate enough, but it's close enough to a predicate they've launched that they just have to prove that it kind of meets the same standard. There's different rules
Mm.
there, right? Whereas if it's a PMA or if it's an all new device, there's different FDA pathways for that, but you have to typically do clinicals. And if it's a pharmaceutical assay, you have to go through like all 3 phases of clinical trials, and that extends the timeline dramatically and the cost and the complexity. So if you can ever get 510K clearance, that's an accelerant.
Just be on top of
Um,
that.
yep. But the other piece is if you're not in a patient critical context, like sometimes dental or other areas adjacent to physically being in the body,
Mm.
you could still provide value across healthcare. So a great example is like digital ecosystems that assist OR efficiencies, but maybe not OR intraoperative decision making, because there's different classifications. And if you're telling the surgeon what to do versus how many surgeons do you need in the room at what time for what procedure, those are 2 different risks, right? If it's something simpler, you could develop software, prove that it works, do, I don't know what submissions necessary there, but it could be light. Like you could get stuff into the field in 3 to 6 months, depending on how risky it is to the patient and what level of infrastructure is required to support it. It's also challenging. Like, how do you commercialize it? How do you support it in the field? Is it integrating with hospital IT systems, which is a whole nother thing? Is it self-contained? Versus like just a traditional laparoscopic instrument, say a powered stapler, from idea to global commercialization, 4 to 7 years of R&D, uh, 40 to 80 million R&D budget, because that's all internal R&D. So the spend is super high. Startups be like, why does it take that much money to make a stapler? Right? It's because of all um, the internal blockers that exist and the inertia that exists on a project. I've seen $100 million projects persist for over 10 years and get to market and get pulled from market within 6 months, because commercialization, that bottom triangle, wasn't really centered with the whole process. So you just had the technology kept pushing forward. Clinical unmet need was debatable. FDA blocked it a bit, and then it bombed in commercial. And because of how J&J and other large strategics are so siloed, the accountability for that passes hands so quickly that nobody feels that money, except the people on the ground that built it. We're like, what the hell? Like, why did we spend a decade of our life on this for it to just get put in the archives? Startups can't entertain failures like that. They just die.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
There's an amazing movie scene from Pentagon Wars. I don't know if you've seen
No,
that.
I've not seen that one.
I'll send you the clip. It's a 10-minute clip where they need to build a tank, and first it's like a scouting vehicle, and
Uh-huh.
like you have all the generals that constantly come up and say, "Hey, can we add this on top of the tank? Can we change this? Can we make this?" And then it's just scope creep to something that
Yeah, yeah. Oh, scope creep's killer. And we rotate a global strategic marketer sometimes every year and a half across a project, and then they'll have a different insight from a handful of clinicians. And we can't sell it if it also doesn't have this widget. So a lot of times it's the project director's ability to hold the tension between what was committed to and what shifts happen in the market and what we do or don't do to meet that shift,
yeah.
and then letting commercial navigate it. Otherwise, you never get product out. Or often what happens is a project floats close to that 100 EMPV, and it starts and stops and starts and stops for like 6 years of internal churn, and then it gets traction and you launch it. I've seen engineers developing products under their desks, just waiting for leadership to agree that this is what we should have done 5 years ago. And then it happens because they have that intuition. So politics is a huge piece of it, which I enjoy.
Oh,
Politics.
I hate it. I hate it.
I'm really
Don't get
good at it.
Yeah, I hate
Yeah,
it.
That's right. I mean, I was brought in between Ethicon was Johnson Johnson's company, Verve Surgical was this robotic startup with Google, and then eventually Oris was acquired externally. I was brought as like the middle person to just be a good partner in this world. So like, I held space with VPs on all sides and risk escalations. I was part of an IP shutdown that stopped everything for like 4 months because of predatory. Actually, I can't keep talking. I can't disclose these pieces, but like months of projects stopping because of legal and like
Yeah.
just things that you don't want to entertain in a normal startup that would kill it. And it's all the internal churn of what was written on paper versus what leaders are saying needs to happen, and then navigating the tension between those two worlds and still trying to just progress a technology that serves patients. People got in their own way a lot. And I like understanding, this is the non-engineering side of me. I enjoy understanding the constraints that different individuals are operating around and the incentive structure that's motivating them,
Mm.
and understanding where those are in conflict with one another across different working groups and cutting through it. Like that area of influence for me progresses global healing because a lot of
Mm.
people don't know how to do it. And if you want to do something that's really like world changing, you typically can't do that alone. You need lots of people in different function groups collaborating. And it's very rare for that to occur in harmony with one another because people are messy creatures. Especially smart, well paid people are even more volatile, which is what I enjoy.
That's true. That's
That's a
true.
lot of fun. Yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. I love that. And yeah, politics. I remember we were helping a top European insurance company move its software factory because they were able to push software updates every 3 to 6 months
Mhm.
because of all the friction in their pipeline and stuff like that. And we rebuilt the entire platform and the stack to the point where they could just push an update in a couple of minutes. Like
Yeah.
they had their IT team every 4 months having to gather on Saturday morning and stay all the way up to Sunday 4 a.m. You smiling? You
Yep.
see what I'm talking about?
I know
To
this
like
world.
to push the code and see where it cracks and leaks and fix it and get it done. And we changed all of that in the I think in 2 months. And what happens is a couple weeks at the end of our engagement, a new CTO came in.
Hmm.
He attended the demo day, so he saw the entire thing. And 6, 7, 8 weeks later, he shut down the entire thing.
Yeah.
And like at some point, we were able to have like hallway aisle conversations with him,
Hmm.
and he just said, "No, I, I shut it down because I was not at the initiative of the project, and
Oh
because
God, it's ego.
yeah, I was not the initiative of the project." He didn't
Yep.
say it explicitly like that because the guy's, of course,
Hmm.
is smart enough not to just say that, but he sort of circled around this idea. So it's like I was recently hired as a CTO. You usually have 3 to 9 months to prove your value, right?
Yes.
And that thing would have credited the previous guy instead of him, and so he just killed the stuff. And you're like,
Yeah. Yeah. I had I can't disclose all the pieces of this. We made a
think,
widget that did
take your
cool
time to
stuff,
think.
and we made a widget that did cool things in a clinical context, and we were right at commercialization, and the global strategic marketing team had done a whole bunch of price sensitivity work with clinicians and reimbursement to figure out what they should sell it at. And we'll say it was like $600 or something, right? And the company group chairman looks at the product. It's involving like revenue across two companies, so it's complicated. So it's up to his decision. And he kind of thumb a meter. And he's like, "That's $1,000 product." He just like moved it up. And then within our context, like when you set a price, you can't really change it in the market. It's so complicated. Yeah, like you give different deals. It's weird, right? So he thermometers it. We go into commercial. It's not really a banger product to clinicians. Like they perceive it to be slower than a different technology they typically use. And the whole thing just got swept under the rug. Like you just burned it, and it's one person at a level too high, too far removed from all the work that's occurred to figure out what it should be. Like those are very dangerous individuals
Oh
because
yeah.
they are also, it's also the optics, right? Of like wanting it to be this successful or this profitable and just add another zero. And that's what we'll sell it at. And just being out of touch with that real situation, I think is the hard piece.
Guy Kawasaki used to say about this. These guys are the guys in the ivory tower, high in
Mhm.
the tower, and the problem is the higher they are in the tower, the less oxygen there is up there, and so the brain doesn't function properly.
Yeah.
While the grounded people have full oxygen and they can get shit done. So
Mhm.
he always says
There's good
like,
ones though.
yeah,
There are good, and I have to be careful with like throwing too many rocks in that area because the closer I've gotten to ivory towers with certain folks, you could tease out which ones have been on the ground and done things. I remember there was can I disclose him? I won't disclose him either. There was a really great company group chairman. He was in charge of multiple med tech companies. We were trying to build out robots. We did lots of like we call them dog and pony shows, where like you get all the stuff you've been working on, and you just walk someone around, and he's got his team of handlers that have to make sure he gets on his flight, right? Like, so because we want to see if we're still funded as a platform, right? And I remember him drilling different directors around why are we letting this other company do this part of software? We should own all of this. And me and a couple of the guys in the back were just like giggling because we 100% agree with the state, like, and like the PD is trying to like negotiate up to him. No, it's this because of that and that. And him just like latching onto this issue and not letting them wiggle away from it because he had done it on other products and other capacities, but now he's leading at one of the highest levels and he holds the bag. Like
mm,
those are ivory tower folks that are movers in our industry.
mm,
But you also, and I won't throw shade at this group, but you can also have folks that get to that level that come out of a finance background that have never engineered or have never been proximal to clinicians or have never like known the niche that they're leading. And when it becomes full bean counting, you have a lot of risks of them just nodding their head and be like, oh, that makes sense. And like you want to have the other individual leading. Like that's why I love technical founders. Um, but the gap is you have to help technical founders upskill on the commercial side, or you have a lot of problems down the road. Like there's no perfect leader
yeah.
across that. You have to either have a collaborative, high capacity team or someone that has just, it's not even like a T-shaped individual. And for T-shape for context, like that's someone who can go like really wide across context and deep in one area. You need an M shape, like someone who's really deep in a couple of the contexts of like the technical, the commercial, communication, and they don't even go all the way up to the high level. Like they're actually on the M, there's still a lot that's a depth in different pockets. Those are hard to find. Like those are unicorn folks, and they're expensive, but you get more leverage out of it. That's the going back to how startups can survive in a space. The other trade-off you have to navigate is paying down an ignorance debt with cheap people or doing a large raise and hiring high leverage folks that can actually knock it out the first time. That's the constant tension. And different medtech startups approach it differently. I'll be careful not to throw rocks in my industry, but I've consulted different startups where I could tell they paid for B players and they paid for A players, and you know which one will see better traction in 2 to 5 years. Because they're about to hit a world of pain when people are trying to upskill to the next level. Like they just won't make it. Or they'll run out of cash, have to do a larger raise to hire the right people and fire 20% of the wrong people. And then that's a whole culture upheaval. Yeah,
Yeah, it's an internal
that's fun.
pivot. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, 100%.
This is so fun.
Honestly, I wasn't expecting we would be discussing about this, but I'm learning a lot of
Yeah.
stuff. So I love it. I
No,
love it.
you're in the world. I'm gonna get you into medtech at one point. We'll give you another shot at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I want to dive into the last segment of this conversation that we have, because I also know you have to get your kids at school
Yeah, you're good.
soon.
I got some margin. You're all right.
Okay,
You'll
cool,
know.
cool, cool.
I'll talk faster when we get
And
to
that's
that
the signal.
point.
That's the signal.
Yeah.
So this morning I was doing a live. I'm trying to go live every day, do live consultations and helping founders out there. And I had an interesting question, and I would like to have your side of the story, and we're gonna connect with your content creation
Yeah.
process and journey and inputs. This morning, someone asked me what marketing is actually working for you on a tiny budget right now. Um, I found the question very interesting, and so there's this entire thing of content creation, but there's a lot of misconception, and there's a lot of mistake that people do, and so I'd love to talk about this with you now.
Yeah. Do you have more of a question than that, or just loosely you want me to
Yeah,
kind of
yes,
wander through it?
I have more of a question now. I just wanted to give you like the
Yeah.
epic theme, and so we can dive into this. So
Yeah, I can work with that theme. Sorry, I was just making sure that was not time for me to talk yet.
okay,
You're
go, go, go.
good.
So theme is being that. So now what I want to talk about is first your content creation journey. So if you can share this a little bit with us, how you started, where you are at now, and what are the metrics that you can share with us, so we can get a big picture of that.
Yeah. So initial metrics, I'll do very high level simplicity and then we can go into the weeds. Like initial metrics was views and virality. Like for me, I did 112 TikToks across a whole bunch of different sprinkled content. Like I followed creativity and just kind of explored the platform and figured out who I was as a creator. I was also doing a ton of live streaming. So I'd done thousands of hours of live streaming on Twitch before I ever made content, because I realized Twitch is a video game streaming platform. Like it doesn't have the same discoverability of just making content that then drives people to a live. And I was doing Twitch before YouTube Live or TikTok Live existed.
Mm,
So for back in those days, the goal was like create an amazing live experience for people. And then you want to make content to ring folks in to feel like what it's like to be on stream and bring them over to your live stream experience. And then when TikTok started going viral and you could unlock live stream, and YouTube has live now, and now LinkedIn has live, that whole move people across the bridge methodology is really a mess. And I think there's still a lot of people with even their leads flow and their call to actions, they try to move people too much, and you forget like how much inertia exists on these platforms. If you're going to see something, just swipe to the next thing. To get someone to actually click and opt in and do a process, it takes a long time. So I think where my metrics are now, there's really three things I try to do with any piece of content. You're establishing trust, so you're creating a proximity for friendship digitally. You are trying to establish authority in a given context without, I'm going to be candid, without looking like a smart asshole or something like that. Like there's a lot of content we watch where we immediately cringe of like, stop bragging about how great you are. Like we all tune out of that. Like that's like B tier content leads flow. And the third piece though is establishing a belief that you could actually help.
hmm,
And many people miss that third piece of content. So any video I make is trying to accomplish one of those three, sometimes two of those three, sometimes all three: trust, authority, and a belief that I can help. And across long form podcasts, short form podcast clips, written posts, newsletters, any Loom video messages I send to follow up in DMs from people, all of it's looping across those three, because the more people cycle across that, the more they begin to build a virtual trust and a belief that you can actually help. And that makes
mm,
conversion and sales way easier. Um, so that's kind of the first, like those are the three metrics I look at now. So I do look at views because I sell views. Like my
mm,
podcast, I charge 20 to 30K for someone to be a guest on my show. I'll fly out and I'll film them and I'll campaign them for multiple months, because
mm,
I could put them at the top of the brand equity I've established, because I'm
mm,
creating associations between their business, them, and me and my business. which is basically a vote of confidence towards them. So that's what I can sell. And I'm very selective because I have integrity on who I have on the show because of that, because I wield power digitally within my context. So that's the first things that I kind of look at: trust, authenticity, trust,
Authentic
authority, and a reason to believe.
and
But
belief.
the other metric I follow is like the depth of authenticity in the content. And I look at this as a Venn diagram with four circles that overlap. Eventually, I'll write on this as well. But in the center is authenticity. The top circle is what you do. The left circle is what you feel. The right circle is what you believe. And the bottom circle is what you emote externally. And often people won't be living across the intersection of all four of those circles. And all four of those circles don't have to be happy with each other. Like the best example I could have is like, I will run long distance even if I don't feel like doing it because I have a belief on what it does for my body and my character. So the doing and the belief are optimized, and the feeling has to follow in that journey. If you then put a GoPro on your head and go run 5 miles and live stream that and talk through that experience, honestly, that's emoting, which is the bottom circle. And very few people emote as they're doing or as they're building business. So go ahead.
Sorry, how is that a moat? I'm curious.
Emoting is like what you are expressing externally.
Okay.
If I go for a run by myself and I feel those things, I do those things, and I believe those things, that's all internal to me. But nobody in the outside world is with me in that journey. With content creation, if you can be authentic rather than showing up with a perfect background and a high res camera and popping out authority stuff, if you could just be on a walk in the neighborhood and talking about something from your context, like you do on your plane. I love your plane videos. Like in the bathroom, that was awesome. Like there is a level of authenticity with that. And I learned that when it was called Dad Bod. I filmed a 16-week half marathon training program, put a GoPro on my head and just ran and sweated and wheezed and talked through the journey. But that built that muscle of authenticity. Or now we were chatting before the podcast of like, I move cones at Amazon at 2:40 in the morning and I talk about what's happening in medtech and surgical robotics partnerships. And it led to its shoulder tap for a really incredible job because I just showed up as I was and still established trust, established authority, gave them a reason to believe that I could help, but it was authentic. And very few people in a digital context, especially a video digital context, are authentic. I get so fatigued of seeing a feed of perfectly polished LinkedIn professional face shot kind of posts of like this person looking special on stage and this person looking special in this context and them talking about their business. I was like, I don't want to read about your business. But for me, like I'll take a picture of like a pile of clothes on the ground and talk about integrating like cleaning and building a business and have a story there. But I'll still wrap it with my logo and some colors so that there's at least cohesion for my audience. Like, oh, it's another post by Joe. I'm going to lean into that because like life is messy and unpolished. Or when I'm at the airport and talking about things that went well and I'm filming a selfie, I also talk about like I have to wake up for third shift in 3 hours. Like this is what my life is. That's the other metric I internally look at is this honest? So when I put out 2/3 of my content as podcast clips of my guests, I'm trying to do that for them. And the other third, that's me. It's always this test of like, am I living into that truth in content, trusting that it's building the trust and the authentic, the authority and the reason to believe. So those are the metrics I look at now. That said, like I think LinkedIn, I did 500,000 impressions in the last year. Right now I'm at like around 15 to 20K per week. But they're ruthlessly targeted. So like that 20,000 impressions per week goes way farther than the 20 million views I've had on TikTok and YouTube that were general with no product offering, right? The sweet spot is when you figure out how to get both to overlap. So that's like my late stage game is I get people moving in it. And then targeted ads is another expansion of content creation that I will start to move into because I have different product offerings that I don't like to do a lot of call to actions and organic. I want organic to be 100% value. I do them in long form, but most folks don't watch the full long form podcast. They watch clips of it over like 90 days. So the best way to do call to action is then to provide a very clear targeted ad to that warm audience. And then they have recognition. And then they're like, oh, this is like the moment where Joe can actually help with blah. Coaching's $1,000 a month in his community, or um, he's got a med tech group, or he could do a podcast. Like those funnels, you start to build around the goodwill you've built through content. And then the other thing I measure, and then sorry, I'll let you go. The other thing I measure is word of mouth referrals.
Sorry, the
so
what?
is word of mouth referrals.
Okay.
So when I do content, see clients hopping onto it and engaging, tagging people and reposting and spreading it, or getting inbound that said, I need to connect with you about this, or hey, I need your email because I need to connect you with so and so. That kind of stuff from a video I made, that's where the business really starts to move, because then you get a surplus of lead flow and you can be selective and drive your prices up, which makes your delivery and your business operations way more scalable. And that's all from brand equity. It gives you a pricing premium. Okay, I'll pause now. You had thoughts?
No, I love it. I love it. I want to get back to what you said about the content with when you were moving cones at Amazon and still shooting content. I
Yeah.
think this is a very powerful example of you can create content anywhere or practically
Absolutely.
anywhere. Is
Mhm.
like, and I want to rebound to I want to shout out to where the shout outs are due, because
Yeah.
I think it was close to a year ago in our WhatsApp group, I sent you guys a message and I said, so at this time we had
Oh, I
this
remember this. Yeah, go ahead.
we had this challenge in the WhatsApp group when we started. It was like, hey guys, share one piece of content
Mm.
on social media and just notify the group that you've pushed it. And I think I was like 30 weeks in,
You're crushing
and
it. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like traveling from America to Germany, then back to Middle East or something like that. It was crazy amount of travel, and I was not prepared for that. And I remember I sent you guys a message. I was like, guys, I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna lose my streak this week. There's no way I can finish the editing of the video to get it out there. And I remember you sent me this message. I don't remember if it was a loom or you just wrote it, but the message
Yeah.
was was something like, "Shut up, Riley. That's just in your head." Like, and you said, grab your phone, put it in portrait mode, hit record, say something for 2 minutes, and publish it. Don't even try to edit or anything like that.
Yeah.
This is literally yours. And I
Mhm.
read the message. I was like, damn, he's right.
Yeah, and you did it.
And I did it. And I did it. I took, and I had a video of like, was 2 minutes, 30 seconds. I was like, okay, I have a video. I haven't edited it. Fuck it. Just put it on
Yeah.
YouTube. I just pushed it on YouTube. No thumbnails, nothing, no description. I just put a title and get it out there. I was like, okay, done, guys. I
Mhm.
did it. And then I flew. I was so down into workshops that I couldn't have a look at my YouTube. And like 3 days later, I look at my video and it's the best performing video I
Yeah.
ever published. And I
Mhm.
remember I sent you the stuff. I was like, man, I can't believe it. That crappy thing that I just sent last minute, no editing, nothing worked. And it broke something in my mind. Like it was like, it broke like a glass ceiling of, okay, yeah, I don't have to just overdo stuff and just get it out there. And so what I love about
Yeah.
your example is you're at work, you figured out a way, you engineered yourself into being able to make content. It's not perfect, but it's getting value out there. And the best part of it is it was not just an input. You got the content out. People got the value out of it, and it actually compounded in building your authority, building your belief
Mhm.
system, and you got people coming back to you and say, "Hey, we want to talk to you." And it's just such an inspiring story.
Yeah. Well, and you did a great job actually following through. So many people would hit a blocker with that. The continuation of a streak and just posting amidst imperfection is such a healthy step in the journey. Like content's potatoes. Folks don't realize that. Like, potatoes are meant to be consumed and crapped out. Like because we in the beginning of our journey, like we're putting all this time into figuring out like our storytelling and our branding and what it is, and you cycle on perfection loops. And it's the same with product innovation too.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that, like, the chances of you having a perfectly evergreen piece of content, and for folks who don't know evergreen, it's a video that just the algorithm keeps pushing people to forever. I have evergreen content. It's really
Yeah, I
cool
have
and
to.
weird.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, where, like, people keep showing up to it, you keep getting views, I keep getting paid from it because 'cause I'm monetized. It does feel magic, but if you're just trying to create evergreen content, you'll never make it because there's something about authentically showing up in motion and letting life happen that's important. When we live within a corporate context for a while, it does create this desire to always have yourself put together because we're used to how we show up to meetings, how we communicate with leaders, and then we bring that into a digital context, or if my aunt sees it, or like all those kind of weird thoughts that enter our heads. Um, like I have coworkers at Amazon that watch my stuff, and it's really interesting and humbling because all day, like, we're just hustling, moving boxes, getting stuff out for same day. For all those folks who order same day shipping, that's me, at least in the Chicago
Shout out to
area,
you
which is
guys.
cool. Yeah, shout out to the team, right? You know, like rocking conveyor belts and boxes. And they watch it, and I hope it's encouraging and helpful for them in their journey. But at the same time, if I'm thinking about who's gonna see it, it blocks you from ever doing it. And I think I've learned how to be more, how would I say it? Like, empathetic to the story that needs to be told regardless of who's gonna hear it or how I'd be seen for it. I think we care a lot about external judgment, the need for you, like, you know your standard of what you could have edited and put out in the thumbnail and all of it optimized, and the algorithm's like, "I don't care about that, not today." You know, it's the message that you had in that moment was more valuable. Um, Coming off of a trip with a client, like, I'd learned that a friend died. Awesome guy. He did psychology or cytology, so, like, detection of cancer, and died of cancer, ironically, in his 30s.
Mm.
Um, and I could have done optimized content from my business context or whatever, and I was like, "I'm just gonna walk and talk about death for 2 minutes and put that out on LinkedIn," because we all work in a context that touches life and death every
Memento
day.
mori.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and it's I I think so few creators get to that point, but that's when the business and the trust starts to explode. And if you can find a way to lock into that consistently, that's where the magic is. Like, I think I'm getting weird shoulder taps for like head of product, CTO, CEO of a different company. And part of it is because those roles require external storytelling just as much as internal building of the
Mm.
driving the business. And so few make it to that level because they haven't learned how to just tell stories in motion.
Mm.
Um, and then from my sister, like, I learned this idea of the 5-minute TikTok, which I've carried with me forever. She did content creation before I did. Oh, it's Atman. What's up, friend? On YouTube, we got a comment from Atman. It's awesome. Um, and learning how to get your workflow as tight as possible so that you can just put out crisp, quick stories is also really important. Just like if something takes you 5 minutes, you can make yourself do it and then get back to whatever it is. And a lot of folks don't reach that with a post. And then holding that intention with also what I call like super edits. Like there are certain areas where if you put in the extra work, it goes farther. And holding that intention is important
Yeah.
as well.
It's so funny you say that. I have a quick anecdote about that.
Yeah.
One of my clients wanted to leverage LinkedIn
Mhm.
as an acquisition platform. So he wanted to create content, and we paused our collaboration for about 3 months. And when we sort of reinitiate the stuff, I said, okay, let me have a look at what you did in the last 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't work. It's not
Nothing.
surprising though. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing. And so he said, yeah, I really want to get back to YouTube. Can we just focus a workshop on working on YouTube and stuff like that? I said, okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna give you what you want. And at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm gonna make sure there's what you need inside what you want. And so when we started the workshop, it was like a 90-minute one-on-one session. And I said, okay, by the end of those 90 minutes, there'll be a short piece of content published on YouTube. And I could see his face. It was like pale anime style with the drop and
Yeah.
everything. Like the full thing was like, you gotta kill me with this stuff. I said, no, but we need to break the ice and we need to start the engine. And the thing is, like, it's just like a rocket.
Oh yeah.
Getting the first mile off the ground takes the most amount of energy, right? Because you need to
Yeah.
escape gravity, right? And so we did 45 minutes of, okay, ideating, recording, editing. I was like sweat mode and getting
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
get it out there. And we were able to get 3 pieces of content fully edited with the captions and everything ready to be uploaded on YouTube. And he was so frustrated that those bits were not good enough. And I said, I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna publish one, you're gonna switch one to public by the end of the week. The following day, I woke up because he's based in Europe. I woke up, I see a message. He has reshot the 2 videos
Oh God.
in a in a better location, better light, with
Yeah.
a better mic, better
Hmm.
everything. And he said, "Oh, I did it entirely, and I've edited them, and they're ready to roll." And I said, "That's great. This is gonna be for the next 2 weeks. But
Yeah.
right now, we just gonna ship what we built."
Yeah.
And we actually did it. We actually did it. And the thing was, like, he was like, "But yeah, but why don't we just use the new footage?" I was like, "Why don't we use both?"
Yeah.
Because, like, you build something and you want it to improve. Okay, cool. Kaizen. That's just gonna be
Hmm.
the next iteration of the stuff. And so, lesson of the story is, yeah, make that 2 minute video because it's gonna get you in the motion. It's gonna get you moving. You're gonna publish it, and of course, you're gonna realize that you could have done better. And that's actually a great thing. You just said, okay, now it's published. Okay, now I'm getting ideas how I could have said this better, how I could have changed this thing, and just iterate on that. And the next week or the next day, you just create a new version of that stuff.
Yeah. At some point, I got to show you my deck for my podcast offer, because the claim of it is like for 2 hours of their time, they get months of campaign. Right. And it's the same thing you're trying to do. If, like, let's sit down for 90 minutes and we're going to get a video out today. And I think helping people break into that is so helpful. And then I see the energy from clients of, like, the content's going out from me because I do the end to end, right? It's a done
Oh
for you
yeah,
service, so I could charge high ticket. And then they start reposting it with their own little blurb on top, or they start to post the videos in their own way. Or, like, one CEO, she had a marketing team, they started reposting and recontextualizing the content on the corporate page, her page. And some of those I'm still getting notifications from, of, like, people are still watching these videos that we made months ago. Like, they just get that
yeah.
much lifetime out of it. But it was having the conversation and breaking it into the pieces is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And those dialogues were imperfect. I think probably 60, yeah, I'll say 60% of my guests afterwards, they have, like, some note they send me of, like, hey, I think we need to cut this piece out or that. I was like, no, it's a podcast. Like, it's done. I've only made one change for legal reasons, and I
Mm,
overdubbed a word because the word I spoke was implicating something. I was like, I
mm,
could do that for legal, but the rest of the show is going out as is, because we feel like the guests feel like people will hang on to 100% of every word. And I have to help them understand, like, if someone's going to listen to this end to end 2 hour conversation, they're driving, they're cooking dinner while their kids are running around, they're hearing the pieces, they're connecting, they're building trust, they know that you're a leader in this space.
yeah.
They're not testing you for perfection and going to scribble out words and have a thesis to combat you with, right? And the reality is, most people will hear it in 1 minute to 3 minute clips over the course of multiple months, which is exciting. It's good people.
Hu- 100%. Yeah, I've seen the same thing.
Yeah.
I helped a couple of friends with their content, and I'm pretty sure I could make it an offer because I've sort of stress tested it. If you film yourself for 90 minutes answering a bunch of questions, you can make 90 days of content. Like,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about it. If you have someone experienced in the room, like you or I, asking the right questions and sort of like having a blueprint for, okay, what we can do, yes, the the amount of content we can get in such a little time is crazy. Like the plane videos,
Mhm.
when I'm flying between Europe and North America, I have a 7 hour flight.
Yeah.
I have a seven
Oh,
hour
that's fine.
flight,
Yeah.
and in those 7 hour flight, I can produce probably 3 to 4 hours of raw content, which is
Mhm.
essentially like for me 6 months of things
Yeah.
I can push in and out. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. Yeah.
Mhm. No, it's fantastic. The leverage you get off of content's crazy too. Like I have a backlog of 50 plus DMs on LinkedIn. Some of them are potential. Sorry, I don't mean that as a flex. Like some of them are like
No, no,
legitimate
no.
clients. Some of them are
That's not stuff
jobs.
like yeah, yeah.
And for me, like I have every day I carry the tension of do I do delivery for existing clients? He's fine, by the way. He's just got a handful of pictures he's excited about. That's
Ah, okay,
awesome.
okay, okay.
He's cute. Yeah, he's
I'm
just
relieved.
in the corner. No, he's safe. Um, I could always hear him through this, but like I I can navigate delivery for existing clients and put out a podcast and campaign them, which is massive leverage. I could do a one-to-many video vlog style that answers the questions of that person and more, or I could do a personalized DM. The only people that get the personalized DMs are folks that I've really qualified, have built trust with myself, that I want to invest in, or that there's a lead that I really know is there. But
Mm,
there's also, like, you learn how to just leave money on the table is a really interesting aspect because if I spent a full day navigating those, like, it could open up another 20K for my business, but what if I just crushed it for the 13K with the clients I already have? What's the word of mouth return on that, right?
the long
So
tail.
that
Yeah.
yeah, it's a tension you're always in. And a lot of folks aren't prepared for it that don't do content creation. I'm privileged to have had multi-million view videos. So like I would answer every comment before I had a business and things to do. It was all part-time on top of my job. And then eventually like the sea of comments would just go beyond what you can engage. Um, it's weird though when it's people that are actually pursuing you, your expertise, your services, and this idea of ghosting people. Like I do need to get like an admin. If like you start figuring out what pockets of your business you start to scale around.
Mm,
What's I don't want an AI crawling in my account. Like when it's me, I want it to be me. So those are other tensions you navigate. I'd
yeah.
rather have an admin that's a human that can three-way message of like, hey, what do you need from Joe? I'm his admin, and like process like the handling of clients is so you have an intermediary eventually, just like
Okay.
if
Sort of a triage kind of thing.
yeah, and I think other people either ghost or you psychologically feel the need to fully follow up, and it
Mm,
degrades what you could put out for your business. I learned that from you. Like you had your little Hormozy algorithm run on like what I was focused on, and you're like doing all these looms doesn't make any sense. And to an extent, it still does. But there are other days where one to many goes way farther. Doing a webinar goes farther. Or for me, telling the right story goes the farthest. And I'm constantly trying to figure out what that story is for a guest on my show. For certain prospects, I'll still put out content with them. So I closed my first 20K client I closed because I hopped on a Zoom with them, got to know them a little bit. They were kind of interested. And then I made a post that just said, meet so and so. And I told their story. And they got enough inbound from that post that it paid for the podcast because of how high ticket their service is. So it was like the easiest close of my life. And it was the most lucrative close of my life. And the client's incredible. I love working with
yeah.
them.
And
Eh,
even for a client, it's an easy deal
it's
because
like
the return on
magic.
investment is like
They already have it. Yeah, you
yeah,
make someone money before they have to spend it is like,
exactly. Yeah, because
it's
this
crazy.
yeah, yeah, because you probably have like a 30 or 60-day invoice notice kind of system, something like that. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's the
Well, yeah.
best kind of
For
transactions that you can have.
Yeah, because I'll connect with someone, I'll prospect them, I'll put out a little bit of content, and then I could show them on the follow-up, like, here's this video, here's the impressions it got. Here are the people that are seeing it. That's the
Mm,
LinkedIn is the most magic platform I know because it is the only true social network that you can leverage for business. So what I mean by that is TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, it's FYP user generated content. So you have no control whether you're on their feed one day to the next. And with LinkedIn, kind of true. But the
mm-hmm.
way that you could tag companies, especially small companies, they always receive a notification of when they're tagged. So
Mm,
like one of my clients, Moon Surgical, I just make content about them until they paid for me to do cool stuff. Like
mm,
because we crossed over enough. And it's the same with the people you elevate, who they know drives eyeballs to them and to you. So it's a very collaborative, social driven algorithm. And if you get content in the pocket with that, like podcasting is super dangerous on LinkedIn if you're in a very tight niche, because you can get to the top of decision makers very fast. Like
Mm,
I only have guests that are C-suite in med tech or rising star, super competent, awesome person, or service providers for the industry that pay. And that way, every piece of content's a banger for that tight audience. And I hate niche. I always fought against niche through content creation because I wanted to express and be free. But when I started building a business, I was like, this is actually super high leverage. A lot of folks just aren't doing this. Like, I have friends on LinkedIn that post pictures of their dinner, and I'm like, why are you doing this? This isn't Facebook. Like, that won't do anything for your business at all. You might think it makes you approachable, but it's actually just not helpful. Like, every time you comment or repost, your followers will actually, well, not all of them, but some of them will get notifications of what you're engaging on.
yeah.
So I'm intentional about where I do and don't comment because that's also content. It's a very strange context. I don't know how long it will stay that way, but it's been
Mm,
transformative for my business.
yeah.
And then I teach clients how to do it. Uh, And you were kind of the first bridge to it because you put me live on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, this is a weird context. Oh, you broke my light. Good job, buddy. Yeah, I can't power it because it's got no power now. You like ripped it out on me. It's awesome.
Next time we can fix it live.
Yeah. So I have 12 minutes till I
Yep.
have to run. So I don't know what else you have on your end, Riley. But this is such a gift, dude. And make sure you send me the link to download the files if it's
Oh yeah,
recording.
Don't
Because
worry.
I'll play around with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I
You can
have
do
a- I
whatever
have a
you want with
couple-
the recording and get
Yeah.
yourself some cool stuff out of it. Yeah. So let's just take an extra 5 minutes. I have one thing I'm super curious about, and then we can close.
Yeah.
One thing I want you to share with us is your content creation output when you had the less amount of time.
So
'Cause-
now? Sure.
and you
Go
have
ahead.
5 minutes to do it. Yes, because the classic thing the thing I hear the most
Mhm.
with founders and tech startups is we not content creators, duh, and we
Mhm.
don't have time to create content because we have to write all that code that nobody's gonna ever use. And so I'm like, okay, let me find you an example of someone who had probably less time and more constraints than you do, because he has kids and jobs and mortgage and all that stuff, and still
Yeah.
puts like 100 times more content than you. And this is you. So I want them to hear it from your mouth in 5 minutes. So
Yeah,
give
I'll-
us the metrics and walk us through
Yeah,
the
I'll,
process.
I'll front load it. This will be a nice humbling clip for folks on that. So I have 4 children, ages 9, 7, 5, and 1. I do all their breakfast, dinners, drop-offs, and pickups from daycare. I have multiple stealth mode clients that I consult in med tech across the innovation trifecta, which is clinical unmet need, technical feasibility, commercial viability. I'm also currently interviewing for multiple executive level roles, which has a load on that. I have a business, Moonlight Medical, where I'm onboarding 3 to 4 people into that, operationalizing that and doing content for other clients that we put out in campaign for multiple months. What else do I do? And I work third shift at Amazon. So I work from 12, I wake up at 12:15 in the morning and get back at about 1 PM unless I can get off early and work on the business and integrate fatherhood with that. So all the constraints you can imagine. And I will say that my volumes right now, I do 2 posts per day that are podcast clips. I do 1 podcast episode per month, and then 1 deep dive of that episode with a whiteboard breaking it down per month. Sometimes I
Sunday
get it up
sips.
to the Sunday sips and the second sips. And then I do 1 vlog style video per day between 5 and 15 minutes of me talking with captions. I do 1 to 2 LinkedIn picture posts with writing. I do 1 Sunday Sips newsletter every other week loosely. And then I do reposts of other content with contextualized insights on it, 1 to 2 per day. So my volumes are probably, I don't know, 5 pieces of content a day times 7, like 35 pieces a day, so about 100 a month. The highest leverage thing you could do for your business if you have no content creation is figure out who your ideal customer is. Create a podcast. You don't need an audience at all. Just say, hey, I'm starting a podcast on SaaS solutions for restaurants. And I know that you're a restaurant owner. I'd love to have you on and just ask you questions about what it's like to run a restaurant and treat that as ethnographic research of your ideal customer avatar. Make them feel amazing and let them know, hey, I'm going to put this episode out. I'm going to try to cut it into some short clips so other friends in your restaurant tier network can hear a bit of your story and learn something from it. Make it valuable for them. It builds trust, and then close them downstream. And then just put out content that way. And the tech stack of it, if you're doing it, Akio says hi. If you're doing it really, really simple, use StreamYard. It's like $250 or something per year. I bought it. It's one of the best purchases I made this year. You could do editing in CapCut pretty easily. I use DaVinci Resolve because I'm a nerd, because there's more I can do. Get Canva for graphic design. Take a still image from the podcast of them smiling. Take a still image from you smiling and put them side by side with a logo of you and a logo of them. And then boom, you have a podcast. And then don't anticipate anyone's going to watch the full episode. They're just going to watch the clips and then post 1 clip a day. Or I do 1 clip from a guest per month, either 8 p.m. or 5 a.m. And then the next day it's a different guest. So I cycle 3 in the evening, 3 in the morning. So it feels like there's always a new guest. It's actually like a couple episodes. I only do 2 episodes of recording per month. That recording takes 4 hours total. Editing maybe another 4 hours. And then scheduling the short form is like an hour. I use Buffer. So if I'm focused in like 10 hours, I can get 3 months worth of content out. So it's the highest leverage for your business, and you should always make time to be proximate to customers. That's why I hang out with surgeons. So every founder should deeply know their customer. The best way to know it is to talk with them for 2 hours and give them value unrelated to your business, and then they might circle around and use your business. So that would be my tough love for your tech startups that just, you could, as a tech founder, who I'm assuming is a programmer, you could hide behind code all day, burn your money or someone else's money, and never have a commercializable product because you didn't bring the right person in, or you didn't take the time to upskill on sales, or you didn't pay Riley to teach you how to do it. Got the orange glasses for that.
So I know this was a fiery clip.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
save 100%, 100%. I had this first semester. I had probably around 10 people who booked one of my consulting call, and they basically pretty much said the same thing. Hey, well, I spent around a year building that thing. I burned between 30 to more than 200K USD.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, how can I help you? Well, can you help me get my first customer? I was like,
Yeah.
what? I'm sorry. And I said it. I'm sorry. You arrived like 10 months too late. So
Yeah.
your house is in ashes. What do you expect me to do with it?
Yeah.
I can't put out the fire.
I mean, there's some folks that will spend tens of thousands of dollars on targeted ads per month to run campaigns for SaaS businesses and things like that. And you can learn how to pick up a phone and just talk right to your customers, do organic. And over time, you'll get traction. I know he's distracted. I get to live with him all the time. This is awesome.
And that's very specific for engineers and
Yeah.
especially software engineers, because we live in the tech world. It's a comfortable place. Your ego is protected. If the code doesn't work, nobody knows. But like when you talk to a customer, and I've heard it multiple times, some customers will say it. I'll never buy your stuff. It sucks.
Yeah.
Right? And people are just delaying this moment forever because then it's just too comfortable. And like you said, some folks burn so much money in ads, and then they say, I don't get it. I'm not getting any clients. I'm running ads and everything. And I look at the ads and I'm like, man, your copy clearly says it's written by an engineer. Like,
yeah. Whereas if they were using LinkedIn and just posting a screenshot from what they made, and they did it on mobile, So you just load that screenshot into Canva, add a border they use every time. Like I have a thing called copy of thumbnails, and it's got hundreds of thumbnails, and it's just the same border, and I just move an image in plane until it fits, and I just stick it on top. The reason I'd say do it on mobile, that's what people read on.
Yeah.
So when you make a post on mobile with your picture, it forces you to make those 3 lines impactful, engaging, interesting, and it's hard. You have to make yourself do the hard stuff because as a founder, how if you can't communicate what you're building towards in 3 lines with a VC or with team members you're trying to recruit into it, like you got to practice on LinkedIn. Like Hormozy, all his content comes from tweets. He just tweets value and then he figures out what's engaging or working well and then turns it into full content.
Yeah.
See, it starts with the words and the images and the video all follows it. But Riley, I got a minute and a half, so you got to wrap it however you wrap it.
Perfect. So that was my wrap up question. If you can tell us, who do you help, how do you help, and how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I help both medtech startup founders or CEOs, as well as large strategics that are trying to triangulate clinical unmet need, technical feasibility, and commercial viability to progress meaningful innovation based on the voices of clinicians and the patients they serve. And then I have a podcast, Sunday Sips, where I lift up these voices and I provide them with a presence that goes out pretty far. So I can provide around 20 to 100,000 impressions to a given guest, depending on the assets we create. And it only takes them 2 hours, and they can pay to fly me out to come and shoot it live, or I could do it remote. And there's different price points and things for that. And then I have a community, the Big Brain Club, where I do coaching for all the non-med tech people that are trying to build business, which is also fun. But other than that, I'm pseudo accessible on LinkedIn, but busy. And I engage comments a bit more than DMs right now. And happy to connect. Yeah, that's all I got. Riley, you're the best, man. Appreciate you. You got to do this at least yearly for sure. You're on my rotation now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Final word. Anything you want to say, anything you want to add, and we'll just close that.
Final word. If you want your life to look different than everyone around you, you have to do something different. You have to take disproportionate risks. You have to have more skin in the game. You have to be willing to be judged. But the backside of that, the outside returns, is fantastic. And that's why so few have it. So keep building.
I love this. I love this. Guys,
Cool.
You just watched the Startup Kitchen Show with your favorite host, me, Riley, the amazing advisor, and Joe, our amazing fatherpreneur and world traveler and money burner and startup saver. For now. If you have any questions, reach out to Joe. If you have any questions, reach out to me. If you want to be next to me next time, send me a message. This was the Startup Kitchen Show. See you on the next one.
Awesome.